For decades, the world treated our oceans as infinite, dumping millions of tons of plastic without a second thought. By 2017, over 9 billion tons had been produced, enough to stretch around the planet hundreds of times, and much of it vanished below the waves. Scientists believed the damage would take centuries to show. Yet just 5 years after this massive experiment, their worst fears weren't just confirmed, they were shattered. Coral reefs collapsed, floating plastic islands formed broader than some countries, and microplastics contaminated the food on our tables and the blood in our veins. But what scientists uncovered next was even more terrifying. How did humanity's greatest convenience turn into the ocean's deadliest curse? Every year, rivers act like conveyor belts, sweeping millions of tons of plastic waste from cities and factories straight into the sea. By 2017, the world had manufactured over 9.1 billion metric tons of plastic, an amount so vast it's hard to even picture. Scientists tracked the flow and found that between 1.1 and 2.4 million metric tons of plastic enter the oceans annually, just from rivers alone. That's the equivalent of a garbage truck's worth of plastic dumped into the ocean every single minute. Monitoring networks scrambled to keep up, deploying surface nets, satellite imagery, and even aerial surveys to map the spreading debris. Yet, the numbers kept climbing, outpacing every cleanup effort. The sheer scale overwhelmed not just the water, but the very systems designed to measure it. For many researchers, the question shifted from whether the ocean could handle this flood to how long it would take for the damage to surface. Out in the heart of the Pacific, research vessels charted a zone so vast it defied belief, 1.6 million square kilometers swirling with plastic debris. The crew logged readings of over 1 million microplastic particles in every square kilometer, a concentration that turned open water into a synthetic soup. Fishermen and sailors spoke of floating islands, dense enough to snag nets and foul propellers, drifting hundreds of miles from the nearest shore. But the real devastation played out beneath the waves. Coral reefs, already battered by warming seas, began to fail at an alarming rate. Scientists documented a 20-fold increase in disease when plastics tangled among the coral branches. Disease rates soaring from just 4% to nearly 90% on affected reefs. The plastic didn't just choke the water. It opened wounds, ferried pathogens, and left once vibrant ecosystems bleached, eroded, and eerily silent. On the island of Bantayan, a fisherman hauls in his net and finds more plastic than fish. Some days, the catch is so thin that families go hungry, while the fish that do make it ashore sometimes have bellies packed with colored threads and beads. This isn't just a local hardship. Microplastics now travel through the food chain, showing up in mussels, oysters, and small fish eaten whole. Researchers estimate that heavy seafood eaters might swallow up to 55,000 microplastic particles every year. Sea salt, harvested from marine water, carries its own invisible load. In 2022, Dutch scientists confirmed what many feared: microplastics detected in human blood for the first time. That finding sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Suddenly, the plastic crisis wasn't just about distant oceans or dying reefs. It was something inside us, a problem no longer confined to the water, but woven into our daily lives. Lab benches once buzzed with excitement. Scientists had isolated bacteria that could digest plastic, species like Ideonella sakaiensis, Ideonella sakaiensis, found thriving in the shadow of waste dumps, breaking down polyethylene terephthalate into simpler compounds. For a moment, there was hope. Maybe nature would clean up what humanity had left behind. But the optimism didn't last. As these microbes multiplied across polluted waters, researchers measured something unexpected. The breakdown process released methane and ethylene, both powerful greenhouse gases. In controlled experiments, polyethylene fragments exposed to sunlight and colonized by bacteria emitted up to 0.24 nanomoles of methane, and 0.34 nanomoles of ethylene per gram each day. The more the microbes worked, the more gases accumulated, adding a new climate threat to the ocean's burden. Toxic byproducts, like aldehydes and short-chain hydrocarbons, also appeared in the water. Dr. Ana Jimenez, a leading marine microbiologist, called it a cycle of harm, a solution that only deepened the crisis. Cleanup began at a scale never seen before. Fleets of ships, some run by non-profit groups and others by national coast guards, trawled the water for floating debris. By 2024, the ocean cleanup alone had pulled more than 1 million pounds of plastic from the Pacific, but that barely scratched the surface. Meanwhile, lawmakers in over 60 countries passed bans or taxes on single-use plastics, targeting bags, straws, and packaging. An NGO director in Jakarta described the effort as a race against time. Each ton removed was a small victory, but new waste kept pouring in. Global policy, once slow and fractured, finally moved in step with the crisis. A materials scientist holds a strip of new polymer up to the light, testing its promise in seawater. Early results look good in the lab, but open ocean trials reveal fragments still linger for years. Meanwhile, youth activists organize coastal cleanups and pressure city councils to ban single-use plastics, turning frustration into momentum. The push for better materials and community action grows, even as the search for a true ocean-safe solution continues. By 2017, humanity had produced more than 9.1 billion tons of plastic, with over 1 million tons entering the oceans each year. 5 years after these plastics accumulated in vast gyres, scientists documented microplastics in coral reefs, seafood, and, by 2022, human blood. Research confirmed that some microbes evolved to break down plastics, but this adaptation released methane and ethylene, gases that drive climate change. Large-scale cleanup efforts have removed thousands of tons, and new laws restrict single-use plastics. Yet, no method has eliminated microplastics from the food chain, and the long-term health effects remain unclear. Current studies show biodegradable materials often fail to break down in marine environments. The evidence is clear. Every piece of discarded plastic becomes part of a global cycle, reaching from the deepest ocean to our own bodies. The ocean records human actions, and its future, and ours, depends on what we choose to leave behind.